Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Understanding Your Wellbeing webinar series brought to you by Univera Healthcare. Now, we launched this monthly webinar series last year in 2025 with the hope of helping to engage our members and communities in Western New York on various health topics that support your well-being. So I'm so excited to see so many of you joining us here today as we kick off year number 2. Now, I want to start out by thanking each of you for taking the time out of your day, probably during your lunch hour, to join us here today for the Train Your Brain, the Psychology Behind Healthy Habits workshop. My name is Katie Keller-Burgess, and I am part of the well-being team here at Univera Healthcare. So I will be the host for today's webinar, simply teeing up our guest speaker and health plan expert on this topic, Dr. Anne-Marie Mikowski, who I will introduce here in just a few slides. Now, January often sparks a sense of motivation with the idea of New Year's resolutions, right? Really providing a moment when many pause, reflect, and set intentions for who we want to become and maybe habits we either want to form or potentially break. Now, research consistently shows that behavior change does not rely on willpower alone. It really relies on gaining a better understanding of how our brains function and form routines, what motivates us, and how small intentional shifts can really compound into meaningful transformation for your overall health and well-being. And that's exactly what Dr. Mikowski will be covering here today. Because at Univera Healthcare, we are right here for you. So we are so excited to share information and tools available to help you make small, everyday changes to your habits that support your well-being. Now, just a few housekeeping items to start us off with here today. Please note that today's webinar and all of our monthly well-being webinars are being recorded and will be housed on our Univera Healthcare YouTube page. So my colleague Kate just put in the chat the link to that page on our YouTube so you can access either this webinar or any previous webinars that we have done in the past. The second housekeeping item that I do want to call out is that all participants' microphones and cameras are automatically disabled. Now, there will be time for questions at the end of the webinar with Dr. Mikowski. So we do encourage you, if you have any questions at any point, to enter them into the chat feature. So at the top of your Teams webinar, you should see a chat icon that you can click on. And once again, enter any questions that you may have at any point, and we will get to questions at the end. And lastly, it is important to note that the content covered here today is meant to be educational in purpose. Of course, if you have any health-related specific question or concern, we do recommend that you connect with your primary care provider. Or if you have any benefit-specific related question or concern, we recommend that you call the customer care number that is located on the back of your Univera Healthcare member ID card. So with that being said, let's learn a little bit about today's expert speaker. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Dr. Anne-Marie Mikowski. Dr. Mikowski is a board-certified adult psychiatrist and one of our behavioral health medical directors here at the health plan. She attended Canisius University here in Buffalo for her undergraduate education prior to obtaining a medical degree at Des Moines University College of Osteopathic Medicine in Iowa. She then returned home to complete a psychiatry residency at the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences at the University of Buffalo. At SUNY Buffalo, Dr. Mikowski went on to teach numerous didactics for medical students and residents. She also provided clinical and psychotherapy supervision for general psychiatry residents at the Erie County Medical Center Behavioral Health Clinic. Additionally, Dr. Mikowski has been recognized as a regional top doctor in psychiatry by Buffalo Spree magazine for multiple years. Dr. Mikowski also works as a clinical assistant professor in psychiatry, providing clinical supervision and teaching cognitive behavioral therapy curriculum to psychiatry residents as volunteer faculty. Now, she currently still resides in Western New York with her husband and 3 children. And in addition to enjoying spending time with them, enjoys, of course, cheering on our beloved Buffalo Bills, reading, traveling, and leading a Girl Scout troop through their many adventures. So we are so excited to have you here with us today, Dr. Mikowski. With that being said, I will turn the stage over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being able to be here with you today. So we're reaching the end of January. How has the year started off for you? It's a natural time for many of us to be reflective at this time of year. Refreshing our habits and routines is worth spending a little bit of time on. So today, we'll review the strength of habits, how our brain supports them, and how to recognize when they become unhealthy. We'll discuss how to break unhelpful patterns and develop healthier alternatives through simple strategies, ultimately resulting in positive lifestyle changes that can really impact you and your family. Finally, we'll close with some resources that can help support this. So the new year, as we said, perfect time to reflect and set habits and goals that will help you thrive in the year ahead. It offers the feeling of a fresh start for many of us. So we roll over to a brand new calendar year and get that fresh boost of motivation and encouragement. That helps us really engage with our new habit focus. There's that cultural focus on the new year that helps build some accountability and momentum and increases our chances of success. And well-being focused resolutions are often very popular and really highlight the importance of physical and mental well-being. So here is a question. What percent of your day is performed out of habit? Turns out 43%, and this is according to a 2002 daily experience study by Wendy Wood, a behavioral scientist who studies habits with her colleagues. This means that if you don't purposefully think about it, about roughly half your day is controlled on autopilot. Why is this? Well, habits serve a critical purpose in making our behavior more efficient. It reduces decision burden that we face each day and frees up more mental energy for more demanding cognitive tasks. Here's a little takeaway activity. The next time you take a break, as you're walking around your house or office, note how many things you're doing that you think you are doing out of habit. So some examples could be if you drop a towel on the floor, if you don't close a cupboard door, immediately locking the garage door after coming in the house. One I would notice would be where I tend to sit on the couch in the living room. It's always the same spot. Habits are the small decisions you make and actions you perform without much conscious awareness every day. So in some ways, we really are defined by our habits. What you do repeatedly, what you spend time thinking about and doing each day ultimately forms the type of person you are. Keep in mind, habits are personal, and most importantly, successful habits are different for everyone. For example, waking up at 5 a.m. to work out may be successful and healthy for one person, but not another. Think, how could that be? Well, think of this. For one person, the beginning of the day, starting off this way energizes them. Maybe they're meeting a friend for a run and enjoying a win-win of socialization too. They begin work at 8 and have plenty of time to refresh, even make themselves a healthy smoothie before they get there. For another person, waking up at 5 leaves them feeling rushed. Maybe they need to start work at 7 and they're actually shortchanging their sleep. They're building a sleep deficit with this, getting up too early. There's no great way for them to get to bed earlier than their current schedule. So you can see the same activity may look very different in different lives. What's the difference between a habit and a routine? Let's just define this a little bit more. We know habits are automatic and often done unconsciously. Wake up, brush your teeth. Routines are a sequence of actions strung together. Often they begin as deliberately planned out and are followed more consciously. They can be helpful in providing structure and a sense of stability in our lives. And organized routines may include many habits, put together. So that would be wake up, stretch, brush teeth, make and drink some coffee, check email. Are your habits helpful? If you're curious about your personal habits and have a sense there are things you'd like to improve, the first step is increasing your awareness about your already existing habits and routines. So here is an action item. Spend some time thinking about a habit or routine and gather some data on it over the next week. Pick something that's important to you and make an effort to be more aware of the things that drive your decisions and actions. Some examples to look at, maybe mindless snacking, how long you exercise, what the first moments of your morning looks like, when you open or look at emails, or how frequently you use a certain app on your phone. Let's look at a very simplistic breakdown of lifestyle change. The example here is for a positive lifestyle change, but keep in mind that this same process holds true for building habits that are not necessarily as healthy for you. So our example, an exercise routine. We start small with daily choices. I choose to get up this morning and exercise for 30 minutes. There are many small pieces that build into this daily choice. We gain some momentum when this is repeated and it really starts a trend. That daily choice to exercise led me to exercise 3 times this week. The habit becomes routine. Some of the conscious effort begins to ease and the trend becomes a tendency. Now I exercise 3 times a week without having to think about it very much. Lifestyle. The habit becomes so strong in routine, it feels uncomfortable when that structure isn't followed. Exercising every day is more part of life now, and I can't really imagine how it would feel without it. How habits work in the brain. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to restructure itself. This is a dynamic, continuous process that allows the brain to build neural connections in response to experiences, the environment, or learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. That's what the saying is. Effectively, this means that when neurons are activating at the same time in response to an event, the neurons become more associated with one another, and the connections become stronger and stronger. There's a neurological process that's at the core of every habit. Behaviors that are repeated are imprinted in neural pathways. Think of walking a path through a grassy area that wears over time. That path becomes more visible and entrenched with repetition. It's possible to form new habits through repeating behaviors. And in order to change your habits, you have to intentionally override your mind in a sense. You're walking over a new part of the grass, and a path will not form without intention and repetition. Here's a similar visual that can be helpful, thinking of a path of water on a sandy shore. As the water continues to flow over the sand, the pathway forms a real groove in the sand and gets more deeper and defined. Maybe it starts to branch off and take up more room, even reforming pathways on top of old rivulets that are no longer in use. Once pathways are formed, it becomes more difficult to change the flow of water, right? So at least not without some effort to rework things. MIT researchers shared a simple neurological loop at the core of every habit, a loop that consists of 3 parts, a cue, a routine, and a reward. Examples of a habit loop: a cue might be coming home, entering the front door. The routine might be walking to the cupboard and eating a cookie. The reward, it tastes really good. So what's the cue? Is it hunger, boredom, the need to get a little break before plunging into other tasks? And what's the reward? The temporary distraction, the enjoyment of how something tastes. Having a reward more strongly reinforces why you do an action over and over again. So here's another action item. We already discussed our first action item to spend some time thinking about a habit or routine and gathering some data on it. For the next step, an exercise you can do: After this activity you're focusing on, jot down on a piece of paper the first 3 things that come to mind. They can be emotions you notice, random thoughts or reflections on how you're feeling, or even the first 3 words that pop into your head. Bonus points if you then pull out this picture of a habit loop and plug the pieces in. So why do this? Again, it may help build awareness into your existing habit loops and will become necessary in creating a process of successful habit change later on. Let's look at some common cues or triggers, and then look at how a habit could be adjusted just by focusing on one of these areas. Cue number 1, time. You may notice that certain tasks mindlessly at different points of the day, like afternoon snacks, smoke breaks, common morning habits, like when you drink your coffee, brush your teeth, or get dressed. Notice they might be neutral or positive or negative habits. We're just noticing that they're linked by a certain time element. When we start to think about adjusting a habit, time-based cues can be used to help trigger the habit and eventually stick with the routine. For example, going for a walk every day during your lunch break may lend to it's lunchtime, it's time for walking. Cue 2, location. We mentally categorize habits to a particular location. Your home, office, car, all of these places may be associated with behaviors and routines. A strong example of this, walking through the kitchen and opening the fridge or a particular snack cabinet. This can be pretty mindless, not really gauging hunger intensity or anything, just kind of going through emotion. And if you want to build a new habit in these familiar locations, you need to overcome the cues your brain has assigned to that area. So maybe trying to shift to, when I walk through the kitchen, I'm going to look for an item that needs to be put away and take care of it. Or when I walk into the kitchen, I'm going to think, what was my last meal? And this may help me notice, yeah, I ate a few hours ago. I don't really need to open that fridge. Cue 3, preceding events. Many habits are a response to something else that happens in your life. So you pick up your phone and immediately your fingers have opened a particular app with very little conscious thought. How can you switch this up? Maybe making a point to pick up your phone only with your non-dominant hand. It makes it much harder to juggle opening something. You can develop new, healthier habits that tie into preceding events with a little strategizing. For example, when I make my morning coffee, I'll do 10 squats. Cue 4, emotional state. I think this one can be the hardest. You may have a habit of eating when you feel stressed or upset, or online shopping when you feel bored. To get at this cue, you need to be aware of your emotions. Slow down, take a few deep breaths before you act if you suspect you're engaging in habits based on emotions. For shifting habits rooted in response to emotional states, this requires different tools. The idea of sitting with uncomfortable emotions until a feeling passes, or getting some additional help in coping through certain emotions might be needed to make some progress. Maybe one of the most interesting, cue 5, other people. The people you surround yourself with can play a role in your habits and behaviors. Let me break this down a little more. In 2007, researchers looked at an interconnected network of over 12,000 people who were assessed repeatedly from the 1970s to the early 2000s as part of the Framingham Heart Study. The researchers used longitudinal statistical models to examine whether weight gain in one person was associated with weight gain in this social network with his or her friends, siblings, spouse, and even neighbors. The researchers found that a person's chance of becoming obese increased by 57% if he or she had a friend who became obese in a given interval. Among pairs of adult siblings, if one sibling became obese, the chance that the other would become obese increased by 40%. If one spouse became obese, the likelihood the other spouse would become obese increased by 37%. These effects were not seen among neighbors in that immediate geographic location. Interestingly, persons of the same sex had relatively greater influence on each other than those of the opposite sex. So pairs of friends and siblings of the same sex appeared to have more influence on weight gain of each other than, friends or siblings of the opposite sex. Spouses who share much of their physical environment may not affect each other's weight as much as mutual friends do. Obesity is a very complex state with a multitude of dynamics that influence it. But this is just a really interesting association that brings up a lot of questions we can think about in the context of behaviors and habits. For example, think of a table of friends at a restaurant. If one person orders a salad, do more people follow? In addition to such strictly social mechanisms, it's also plausible there are some physiological cues that occur. For instance, if seeing somebody chewing some food, could that be stimulating hunger cues adjacent for us? So there are many reasons that the people around us may influence us and our habits and behaviors. If anyone's interested in this study, it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine and is publicly available. Unhealthy habits are things that hinder daily function in some way. They may exacerbate health issues, increase stress or anxiety, negatively impact productivity, finances, or relationships. They may be associated with a feeling that they're inevitable and can't be stopped despite wanting to. Often, they provide some type of short-term relief, but result in long-term negative consequences. If you are recognizing an unhealthy habit, consider your values and who you would like to be. Look at routines or behaviors that inhibit chances to achieve your ideal. Think about all the information you've gathered so far, the triggers, the cues, and all of the associated pieces. And then start in one place. You may have several things you want to address, but decide which habit you want to start with. Too much becomes confusing, overwhelming, and lessens the chance for real impact. Here are the keys to changing an unhealthy habit. Recognize, replace, and repeat. Recognize being aware that what you're doing is a habit and that you are in the habit loop supporting something unhealthy. Become aware of the trigger or cue, the behavior, and the reward. Replace. Research reveals that our habits are most effectively eliminated when we replace them with more helpful habits. I'm going to dive into habit replacement on the next slide. And then repeat. A behavior must be repeated over and over again to turn into a habit. Let's look at some techniques for replacing habits. We have an unhealthy habit. We know it's there. We know it's something we want to adjust. So what can we do? We can choose gradual change or swaps. Examples of gradual change, incremental techniques. Number one, super small it. For example, one push-up a day. Make it so small it would be hard to fail. My example, 10 squats while my morning coffee brews. That's really hard for me to fail. Two, use the compound effect. If you take a habit and improve by only 1% each day, over time that adds up, just like compounding interest in the world of finance. We often underestimate how the value of making small improvements on a daily basis really affects things. Too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. So thinking again, I have coffee pretty much every day. Say I remember to practice this habit about half the days of the year, so 182 days. That's 1,820 squats in a year and should result in some pretty powerful glutes. Number three, break it down throughout the day. For example, if your goal is to become a writer and you're excited by the idea of writing a book, you might aim for writing 60 minutes a day. Finding an hour chunk of time might be really challenging. So to make it less daunting, breaking it into 4 15-minute chunks you complete through the day may be useful. 4, find a sustainable pace. We've all heard stories, maybe our own, where people start out strong and dramatic only to fizzle out. If you'd like to become a runner but don't have a habit of movement, tasking yourself to run 2 miles may feel really grueling and impossible. First, building a sustained movement break, then starting a couch to 5K type of program might be more effective. Now let's look at examples of swaps. 1, be thoughtful and ask, is there a better alternative? Maybe a goal is better eating habits for the family. Will my kids really notice if I swap out the regular ketchup for the no sugar added ketchup? Some small change swaps may add up to much less sugar over the course of a month. Multiple alternatives. Let's keep that same goal idea, healthy eating habits for the family. It's taco night, and I'm going to make a point of adding a few more topping choices to the rotation, a side of black beans and pinto beans, corn and chopped tomato. Be specific. If the goal is to increase my habit of movement, maybe I set a timer to remind myself to move or stretch once per hour. 4, find a habit that provides a similar benefit. I love ice cream, but ice cream is not always loving me. So would freezing some of those cotton candy grapes feel like an indulgent splurge if I reframe it that way? They are sweet, they're delicious, they taste like frozen treats. They're about the same price as a pint of special ice cream, and I was going to treat myself anyway, so maybe I try buying them as dessert this week. Recognize keystone habits. These are important to spend a moment on because they maximize change potential. Observe behaviors that set a positive tone for your day. Do you feel more focused after a morning workout or meditation, after having a healthy breakfast? Or maybe the tone is actually set earlier with a good 8 hours of sleep because you stuck to a new bedtime habit. These are examples of keystone habits that have a domino effect. How do you know if you've hit a keystone habit or conversely have a negative keystone habit? Identify behaviors that, if skipped, disrupt the momentum. If skipping your morning meditation leaves you scattered, or skipping meal prep leads to unhealthy decisions through the week, that could be a keystone habit. Is there one bad habit that sets off a chain reaction, like unchecked doom scrolling, an hour later bedtime after doing that? That means I'm dragging and get up later. I'm rushed, so I don't eat breakfast. And the combination of being starved by lunch and very tired means I'm more likely to buy a 500-calorie coffee drink to get through things, right? And be really sluggish. So some examples of keystone habits that are common: making your bed in the morning, a set bedtime for quality sleep, a gratitude practice to wind down and rest easier, getting in exercise with 10,000 steps a day. I'll share one that works for our family: making sure we remember to run the dishwasher overnight so that I can empty it first thing in the morning. Everyone can put their breakfast dishes right in. That eliminates somebody later on needing, one person to fill the sink with, or fill the dishwasher with everything from the sink. So it just really helps keep the whole kitchen cleaner through the day and seems to cue everyone towards better tidiness. What are some habits of people you admire? Perhaps they've shared things that work for them. One of my mentors, an incredibly knowledgeable psychiatrist, would wake up at 4 a.m. and read journal articles while walking on the treadmill in the morning. While that might sound very daunting, this worked for them. It was quiet, so less distraction, pairing that with movement to wake up the brain and body. Exercise is great for our cognitive health. So this was really effective. And since it was only done on work days, it felt like a normal part of their workday schedule. I thought that was a really great habit to start the day, and it probably really supported them in being an academic expert for many years. There isn't one formula for changing habits. There are thousands, but there are strategies that can help. And here are a few more ideas. Tell someone about your goal. Sharing accountability creates support. You never know, perhaps you'll get a habit buddy to try things with. Visualize your success. Picture what achieving your habit looks and feels like. The more senses you engage, the more neural pathways will activate and strengthen. Update your environment. Create surroundings that support what you're trying to do. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Acknowledge small wins along the way. Build in some incremental rewards or write down your small daily accomplishments to review at the end of the week. Remove barriers. Make it easy for yourself to follow through by thinking through what could get in the way and then eliminating it. Pair habits with existing routines. Connect new habits to something you already do. When I brush my teeth in the morning, I will take my medicine at that time. Track your progress. Use a journal or app to stay accountable and appreciate the steps you're taking. And above all, just be kind to yourself. Habits take time and setbacks are part of the process because your brain is learning. If you feel discouraged, think about your why for trying to learn this in the first place. So don't be too hard on yourself. Rewiring old patterns can feel hard. So why make it feel worse by repeating negative thoughts about yourself in the process? We mentioned earlier that a behavior has to be repeated over and over again to turn it into a habit. We have some information on how long that repetition actually takes. According to a 2009 study, the time it takes to form a habit really isn't clear cut. And as you can see on this slide, there may be additional time for that behavior to truly feel automatic. Researchers from University College London recruited 96 people who were interested in forming a new habit, such as eating a piece of fruit with lunch or doing a 15-minute run each day. Over the space of 12 weeks, they found that the average time it takes for a new habit to stick is 66 days, or the time it takes for the behavior to become more automated. Although the average was 66 days, there was marked variation on how long habits actually took to form. Anywhere from 18 days up to 254 days were noted in the habits examined in this study. Individual times had a lot of variation, as did the type of habit. Drinking a glass of water became automated very quickly, but doing 50 sit-ups before breakfast required more dedicated time. That makes sense to me since we're all different. And some activities, such as running, are really comprised of multiple step routines, often with many variables and logistics to work with. Starting a running routine from no exercise is very different from adding in 15 minutes of running after an already established gym routine. And maybe someone's already using the stair climber and doing some cardio and just flipping and switching that out. So the study I referenced is published in the European Journal of Social Psychiatry, also available online publicly for anyone interested. A few thoughts about habits and children. We all know how important it is for children to learn good habits, habits to develop strong social skills, manners, healthy food choices, and physical activity. All these things can start at an early age. Parents, siblings, grandparents, teachers, and coaches are the main role models and influencers for children when it comes to developing healthy habits early in life. And that can translate into lifelong benefits. As we reviewed earlier, it takes time and repetition of behaviors to become a habit. There's a wealth of information supporting the benefit of routines for healthy development. So our daily actions matter and sometimes require an extra level of patience to implement in the family. Kids learn by watching and modeling. So one of the best ways to develop good habits for children is by trying to share good habits together. There are many good, healthy habits that families with kids can develop. As an example, I love the development of a reading habit. So you can apply this model to many other behaviors, but encouraging reading is one of those amazing keystone habits that worked in my family. So here are some tips using that as the example. Repetition and practice. Reading is an excellent daily habit. Model good behavior by reading in front of your child. And rather they see me reading a book instead of scrolling on my phone when I have some downtime. Create a supportive environment. I don't turn on the television in the morning. Our living room is often a pretty cozy reading space. In the winter, I flip on the fireplace and we all snuggle under blankets to read books before school when we can. Let your child pick what they read. We've gone through plenty of book phases, and I'm not worried if they're in a graphic novel phase or only want to read about princesses. Their interests will change, and it's more the process that matters than the content. Wrapping up, habits shape our lives and overall well being. Awareness is the first step toward change, and small, consistent actions lead to big results. So, our action steps: spend some time thinking about a habit or routine and gather some data on it. Use cues and triggers to your advantage. Identify keystone habits for greatest impact and pick one thing to start with. Most importantly, give yourself some compassion because your brain is learning and learning takes time. Now I will go ahead and give the floor back to Katie here to go over some ways that we may be able to help support habit change.
Dr. Mikowski, thank you so much for sharing all of that wonderful information. I'm sure many of us can take a few things away that hopefully we can implement throughout our day. I really like the idea of doing something while brushing my teeth. I recently just tried implementing standing on one foot while doing that to help with some balance. So really trying to rewire my own brain to instill those habits. So thank you again for that great information. As mentioned, we're going to get into some related benefits and tools available through Univera Healthcare. I do want to call out that the availability of certain benefits and resources that I do review here right now do vary by contract, but we encourage you to once again contact our customer care number on the back of your member ID card if interested in exploring any of them and see if they're available to you. So first off, our Find a Doctor tool, as well as our cost estimator tool available on our Univera Healthcare member account. So whether that be through the website or our mobile app, you're able to search for in-network providers and doctors that are really going to meet your needs. You're able to filter to specialty, languages spoken, whether the provider is accepting new patients, and more. And then once again, if potentially on a high deductible health plan and really looking to better estimate for out-of-pocket expenses, that estimator cost tool, once again, on our website and mobile app can really help to provide you some additional details relative to that. So we encourage you to log in to receive results personalized to your plan, spending, and once again, potential deductible if available. Up next, I want to highlight our care management team here at Univera Healthcare. So this is a team inclusive of a variety of healthcare professionals, such as registered nurses, registered dietitians, physical therapists, and more, who are all here for our members any age, whenever you need us. So whether that be from little questions, maybe looking to try to eat healthier and trying to connect with one of our registered dietitians, all the way up to big health challenges or concerns, maybe dealing with multiple chronic conditions and looking for that additional layer of support. Once again, our care managers are here to support members of all ages at no added cost, a really big value add for our members to be able to connect with these healthcare professionals and provide that personalized guidance and support, really helping to give you a specific care plan to what you are looking for more guidance on. So you can see some of the conditions here listed, such as behavioral health concerns, whether it be for substance use, anxiety, stress management, maybe condition management, whether it be for diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, or once again, maybe more health and wellness for physical activity, weight loss, smoking cessation, and more. Now you can connect with this team through phone, email, or another great way to connect with them is through the WellFrame app, which is a free app Univera Healthcare members can download. And on the other end of that app is a direct link to our care managers. You can text with them right through the app and once again receive that personalized plan, guidance, and support you may be looking for. So if interested in downloading that free WellFrame app, when creating your account, the access code to use is a Univera Welcome, all one word, all lowercase. And the last benefit tool I wanted to highlight is Vitalize, which is a digital home base for our members' health and well-being through our partnership with Personify Health. So Vitalize gives our eligible members the tools and support they need to make small, everyday changes to their well-being that are really focused in on the areas that you want to improve the most, whether it be physical activity or maybe stress management or trying to be better about moving throughout the day. Whatever it is, there is a variety of tools and resources to support you and help to really build upon those healthy habits and support your well-being in the long run. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join here again today. Just a quick plug for our upcoming February webinar on the topic of understanding your heart health, risks, prevention, and care. One of our registered nurses here and case managers will be reviewing what heart disease is, risk factors, prevention strategies, and more. So that is going to take place Thursday, February 19th at noon. The QR code here, if you have your smart device out and want to scan that, or once again, my colleague Kate put in the chat the registration link to register for that one as well. She also put in the chat a short survey. So if anyone has a few minutes to take that, give some feedback on today's webinar, as well as future topics you're interested in hearing more about, we would really appreciate that feedback. So if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to get that survey completed, we would appreciate it. And last but not least, diving into questions. So once again, we do encourage anyone that has a question, please enter them into that chat icon feature. Some great feedback so far, Dr. Mikowski, really feeling inspired by participants. One question that came through, can you say more about the 43% habits and 57% autopilot? What is a ratio that we should strive for so more are habit driven? And can you give a few more examples of our intentional activities, whether that be work, dinners, getting dressed, etc.? So any thoughts around that, Dr. Mikowski?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know we can necessarily change the ratio itself because our brain needs to have a certain amount of automatic function. That's just as human beings as we're kind of set. But trying to shift what types of things become more autopilot over time. So there's less intense energy or thinking or needing to kind of spend time on creating a new habit. So once you've learned something, it's like speaking a new language. Once you've learned it, it takes less mental energy to do it, right? So just trying to encourage learning and have the autopilot be things that you want to be doing with your time.
That's a great call out. And it's funny when you say this word autopilot, it's those tasks that I feel like once again you do daily. I myself oftentimes, when I'm washing my hair or whatnot, because I'm so on autopilot, there may be a time where I'm thinking, did I just condition my hair or not? So it's really that mental game of once again being present and really focusing in on the task at hand to make sure that you're aware of what's going on as well. Um, Another question that came through, do you have any recommendations for designing your environment to make healthy habits easier?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll hear about this with trying to like start an exercise habit. It'll be like making sure your gym bag is packed or your sneakers are right there. If you put your sneakers on, it's easier to get out the door and moving. Um, Having clothes laid out the night before your exercise clothes if you're planning to exercise in the morning. It might be lessening distractions. Like if your goal is to really focus on something and create, we talked about that example of writing or, having a writing habit, maybe a lessening in distractions in your environment, making sure the television's off or a phone is put in a different room. So just trying to think about what are the types of things that could trip you up when you're creating a habit, and then how could you make sure your surroundings really support you and don't hinder.
Absolutely. And I know me personally with the environment, having a standing workstation, potentially a walking pad, once again, kind of helps make my goal and habit of trying to be active throughout the day and not just sedentary at a desk much easier. So another, yeah, little tip for environment as well there. But so far, once again, that is all the questions that come through. I'll give another 30 seconds if any last minute questions you want to enter into that chat. But once again, Dr. Mikowski, a lot of great feedback saying this was very helpful, very informative. The information will really come in handy as a lot of people work towards their New Year's resolutions.
Thank you. I really hope everybody enjoyed the topic. I know I always love it. So thanks so much for coming today.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Dr. Mikowski, for all the great information here. We appreciate your passion, knowledge, and dedication to support our members. So with that being said, I hope everyone stays warm this weekend. Hopefully we'll see you back in February for that upcoming webinar then. And thank you again. Bye, everyone.